Good morning and welcome to the Abigail Olaya Show. So today is episode 3, and I'm going to be speaking about teaching empowering your language. So if this is your first time joining me, welcome. If you're returning, I am so glad you're here and welcome back. And I like to start with a positive focus. So my positive focus for today is oh, yes, it is. Is that my husband, Edward, got me connected to be wired into the internet. So I'm not on Wi-Fi. So that solution has been put in place so that there's no glitches like the last episode. So live and learn and keep on growing, and that's what it is. And so he helped me with that, and I'm so appreciative. That's my positive focus. And if this is your first time joining, positive focus is a way that I like to use the time to like reset the energy. So even though I was grounded, it just allows us to come to a space together and to reset whatever energy is occurring in the room and to focus on something positive, to be grateful, because we know the power of gratitude. So let's see. Oh, hi, Nick. Good morning. Yeah, yes, we are connected and wired in. So the power of empowering your language. Let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I like to say is a reminder of the Abigail Olaya Show. It's a place for 3 things: for the place to come for insights on increasing your personal power, as well as creating a lifestyle of freedom. And that's more than just being able to do what you want to do at any point in time. It's really being able to have that free and clean energy that I love, that I speak to and that I really build into my life. So being able to teach you tools and techniques to do that in your life as well. And then also to increase your confidence on being able to live out according to your desires. And so that's what the show is all about. All right, so today we're going to be focusing on language and the power of language. So why does language matter? Well, it matters because it's the way we communicate. It's the way we express ourselves. It's the way we are in a relationship with anyone at any time. And so when we think about, like, why to call a mountain? Because it was created at some point in time, and now everybody refers to that as a mountain. So that's the power of language. It's the ability to be able to relate. And they said, oh, what's that? Blah, 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 whatever thing. Everyone else would be like, what? We don't understand that. And so you can understand that that's like the power that our words have. And so today we're going to be going into words carry energy, and they also have power. So depending on how we perceive words or how others perceive words, they just carry an overall feel with them. And I want to give you some words that are going to have a big impact. So if you were to swap out these words, I call them non-useful or weak words in my world. That's what I refer to them as. And so I want to replace those, pull those out, and put in something that's more powerful, something that's going to have more something that's going to be able to get the results that I'm looking for. And I tell you, the first time that I ever became aware of the power of language, it was before I was in high school. So I was like a early teen maybe. And I remember that I would be referred to as a picky eater. It was that when I was growing up, I was called Abby. And so Abby's picky, whatever. I don't know what it really was, but that's what I remember it as. And so I was a picky eater, and I hated it. I hated it. It felt like a problem. It felt like a problem to be able to like choose different. That's where if you've followed me any amount of time, or if you continue, you'll understand that freedom is my highest value. So I want to have freedom of choice. And I had that as a very young age. I wanted freedom of choice of like being able, if I didn't want to eat whatever was being offered, like why couldn't I have a choice for something else? But anyway, picky had this energy, and that was how it was created for me. So I hated picky. Then one day my Theo was in town, and we were sitting at the kitchen table, and we must have been going to eat or not going to eat, but like eating at our house. Or it was discussed. And I remember it being called, something about we're both picky eaters. And so we would, we would both be wanting something other, or our choices maybe being like in this realm where others wanted it out here, whatever it was. And so it was referred to that we were both picky eaters. And his response, he liked to joke around, and his response was in a joking way. I like to consider it, or I like to think of, and he said, I like to think of it as selective. Boom, my world just opened up. I felt that. I was like, ooh, selective. That felt good. It felt like choice. It felt like, like I had the power. I now had the power. It wasn't picky. I don't know. However was picky was created for me. It was now, it was more empowering word at that time. And so people could use picky. I'm just using this as the story of this is what it represented to me. And this is when I first learned the power of language. Like I didn't have the words. I didn't have the ability at that time to understand, but I had enough it altered my world in such a way that I started paying attention to words after that, because I didn't know there was an alternative. I didn't know there was another option to express something or to communicate it. At that time, it had never been presented to me. I didn't even know I was looking for it. But when it occurred, it literally altered my world. And so I have majority of my life been very conscious and very intentional on language, and continue to learn and see that. So that's the power of language. That's like my first encounter of, and selective carry different energy. And so where the power really was, no matter what, even if people continue to say picky, I could redirect them. I'm selective. I'm selecting, it was now stepping into something that felt good to me and being able to reframe that, being able to change that, at least. And it didn't matter anymore what they said, because now I had a different way of seeing that for myself. So anyway, that's the beginning of like, why does language matter? And it's because it's how we communicate. So I'm going to go through my top 5 words I'll give you that have a big impact as a starting point. I mean, there's a lot of words out there, but I think these are pretty general and available to people to have, where they can start implementing immediately and being able to start getting results. So Hugh says choice or decision. I suppose it could be both. I mean, depending on how you look at it. Deciding to be one way is like after consideration of something, right? And also choices. I guess I could have chosen to be a picky eater, but I really wanted to have the freedom within myself to be able to choose. So that's where I was coming from. Nick says, there's so much power in words. Yes, there is. So let's go and start with the first one. This is like the most impactful, powerful one, I think, that we could start with, and that is not. And so when people focus on, like, I just want you, the whole point of what I'm talking to you about today is to find these little words, see how they're feeling for you in your world, see if you swap them out, how they could be powerful, and just start bringing that awareness. And the story that I always remember when I think about not is when I was about maybe 28. I was 28 years old. I was a manager at an electricity company here in utility company here in Phoenix. And that was like, I mean, there was a lot of people. In fact, I took on a team. And when I took on that team, one of the ladies on there had been working for that particular utility company for 27 years. And here I am. That's like my life. Here I am now coming in as their manager. And so they had restructured, rearranged departments. And now I was going to be in charge of like this other department that dissolved was now going to be absorbed by my department. And so that people would still have employment, and there was a need. Well, anyway, when she got onto the team, she did not want to do this nature of work. So I managed the enterprise portfolio management piece. It was working largely with project managers, deciding whether or not, projects were going to be funded. And so she wanted to do something else. I don't remember what it was. It's been quite a while, but I remember that she wanted to do something else. And at a large corporate utility company, HR was a big thing. And so it came up where I don't recall why, but there was some meeting with an HR representative, myself and her. And when we met with HR, the meeting was going okay. It was like, yes, blah, 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 whatever. Here's the status and stuff. And I said, well, I'll call her Mary. Well, Mary, you don't want to do portfolio management work. Like I was communicating, like, it's okay. Let's find you another spot or whatever. But the one phrase I said was, she didn't. I said, you don't want to do X work. Right. And so the meeting, whatever, ended. It was fine. In the meeting, it was fine. I mean, she did have like a reaction, but she like kind of toned it or settled. It wasn't, nothing was brought up in the meeting. And then we walked away, from it, thought it was done. And she was giving me the cold shoulder, like didn't want to make eye contact with me. And it was like for a couple, it was either the rest of the afternoon or the next day. And then I went up to her and I was like, hey, Mary, what's going on? Like, I understand you're bothered by something. What happened? Because I literally did not know what was bothering her. And that's when she, we went into a conference room because she wanted to talk about it. And so we went into a conference room and she was filled with emotion, and she just came out and said, hey, Aniket. And so she said, you told HR I didn't do my job. I didn't want to do this. And I was like, what? It took me like a couple of seconds to get on the same page. And it's because it was the don't that I said in there. So rather than like, if I would have, I just remember that story, how that is one of the examples of like, that always held so much to me about like when we're using words and to be intentional, especially on like, really important conversations. It's not like any conversation is important. I mean, like there's formal and informal, but this was like something that was like anytime there's a performance review, to be very intentional about my words, because it matters how it lands and how the other person carries for it. Anytime, so I've owned and operated a wedding business for the last 13 years. That is a highly emotional state. When they come in and they ask for something, when they want something, I teach my team to use this. And so it's removing the not, and we're going to go over the power of not. So not is really focusing on what we don't want. So when I said, you don't want to do this, it came across as she didn't want to do that. And that's all she could focus on, was that I was saying she was not doing her job. And so I hope that really lands for you. I mean, definitely you can tell, me telling the story, like reliving it, it's like, that was a really powerful example for me of like being even more intentional on my words and when I'm having conversation. So if you've ever had a conversation and you think, whoa, afterwards, that went totally different than what I wanted, then, kind of reflect on what words were used. Where did it go right? You can have another conversation following up, but it's just a matter of practicing and moving forward. So I want you to think of anytime you're saying don't or can't, that's a not. So what we're doing when we use those words is like in the wedding industry, they say, do you allow kegs? And we say, no, we don't allow kegs. That's what a normal response or a traditional or an easy, most accessible response might be. And so I teach my team to say, instead of what we don't do, what do we do? Right? So you just flip it around. Instead of don't, you think of what do I do? Well, if I don't want this, so it's don't want, you think of what do I want? And that's how you can start reframing and pulling your language into being more powerful. So even if it's you're talking to your spouse, your partner, whoever it is, you say like, I don't want the dirty dishes left overnight or whatever it might be. Now the conversation is going to go in this way because you're focusing on what you don't want. So then there's going to be a whole topic and a whole conversation around what you don't want, what you don't like. Hey, Nick, yeah, you like that? Yeah, it's so powerful. Whereas if I say, I don't want the dirty dishes left overnight, you change it to, what do I want? I want the kitchen clean in the morning. I want the kitchen to have a fresh energy in the morning. If I say that, whole possibility is over here. Now we're going to be moving towards what I want. So you want to take out don't, and you just always reframe it. What do I want? What do is whatever on the other side of don't, right? So you just think of what do I want? And the other one is can't. So cannot, can't. So we're focusing on what we can't do. And again, in the wedding industry, like we get requests all the time. Can we have shots before the ceremony? Can we have this? Can we do whatever? If we come back with the energy of can't, that's all they hear. Now it's almost like a fight, or it's like who's going to win, right? Why can't I have that? People don't like hearing they can't have something. And so you want to think of what can I do? And that's how I teach my team. What can I do? Okay, if they can't have shots before the wedding, what can they do? Right? They could have a beer or wine. They could have a mimosa or champagne or something in their wedding suites if they'd like to bring that. And so we frame it in what can instead of can't, always looking for the can, because again, we say we can't do, now we're in that energy path and we're going to be going down that hill, down that path of what we don't want or what can't. And so it's just a very like negative path to be on, and it gets us farther from what we want, farther from what we're actually wanting to accomplish. So if you think about leaders, if you think about people who are very effective in their communication, they're probably very intentional on what words they're using to communicate. Like I am very intentional. Does that mean that I never say not? No, I'm still a human. So, but when I do, I catch it and I'm like, oh, let me reframe that. And I'll tell you, here's how you can get good at it. Take the world, take your world as your teacher. So when you're watching TV, when you have something on, when you're out at the grocery store and you hear don't, can't, instead of judging, we don't want to remove judgment. We don't want that, because that's not going to give us a free lifestyle, a lifestyle of freedom, right? That's going to anchor us into that kind of energy. So just remove the judgment, not like, oh, they didn't know or whatever. Oh, that's bad to say that. No, take out the judgment. Look at it as, how would I rephrase that? How would I say that? If they don't want X, how would I say what they do want? And you just practice. It's like a muscle. It's like working out. Just practice. Use that as your teacher, as your guide in anything. You don't even need to go. What you'll see by the end of the day, I'm sure you'll hear one of these examples. So don't and can't, basically not. I want you to think of the word not as it's going to send you down what you don't want. So let's focus on what we do want. What can we do? And reframing it that way. And the second word is try. And try, I get it because I also play with it with my mind and my kids. Like, try that new whatever, try when they didn't like salad. Like, just try it. And so I would want to replace it with taste. But try overall is a disclaimer when you're using it as, I'll try and be there on time. You're already disclaiming. You're taking it off the table. It's like, I'll try. Don't count on me. Don't count on me. It's not going to happen. If it does, great. If it doesn't, then it's not. So try as a disclaimer, pulls you down into, and why it's not some, it does land for the other person, right? But it's like being intentional for ourselves. Try. So when we're saying we're trying, we're already pulling ourselves out of committing to something. We're removing ourselves from being committed. So next time you find yourself saying, try, I'll try to be there, I'll try to this, when it's in reference of commitment, when it's reference of doing something, take a step back and say, what is it? What is it that's causing me to pull back and not really want to commit to this? Because that's what try is. I'll try and, oh, can you have this by X deadline? Yeah, I'll try. It's so much more powerful to remove the try and be like, well, I have 10 other things that, I committed to you that I was going to get done. What is the priority? Where does this land in the priority? See how that opens up? Because now I'm looking at commitment. I'm just not trying to push everything and like make sure I do this. And if I didn't make it, then I didn't make it. And how does that land on the other side when someone's told us try and they don't come through? And they're like, well, I told you I'd try. Or when they say try and you're like, can't count on you. I don't know. See, what are my other options? I don't know. You may not even have awareness and that is occurring. Who says the listener is responsible for what they hear, not what is said. The speaker is responsible for what they say, not what is heard. I like to repeat that. I like to repeat what I heard to be sure I'm getting the right message. Yeah. And you can do that too when you're conscious of it, but somebody else on the other side, and that's the same for using these words, right? Is like, I'm being intentional about these words so that I can have more chances of getting what I want and being more effective towards the results I'm wanting to get, whether that's a powerful communication with my spouse, whether that's with my kids. We say to the kids, don't cross the street. And what do? If I told you where somebody, I was like, oh, don't look over there. What's the first thing you want to do? You want to look over there. Because that's like the mind doesn't recognize the not. And so it's not about another person. It's about me. And it's taking that same perspective. It's about me and about being able to look at it from the lens of like, here's what it is. And so like, yes, if you're aware of that and you want to repeat, okay, so what you're saying is X, Y, and Z, then yes, it does help with the communication, right? So this is about being intentional. You say, just like a relationship that is 50-50, that means there's 50-50 and then going the other way. Yeah, it does mean that there's 50-50 and we can't control the other side. So how am I putting my language, being intentional with it to favor what I'm looking for, right? So yes, there's always double responsibility, but most people are not even aware. When was the last time that someone says, I try to get that to you, and say, no, I need a commitment, like what's going on? Most people don't push back on that. And so this is a way to help you. And even when you say try, right? Yeah, it says that goes with the word try. Oh, the 50-50. Yeah. So most people don't say try. I mean, don't push back on the try, right? And so this is just a way to increase your own personal power to uplift you. Hey, why do I not want to commit to this? What's causing me to not want to commit? Oh, we should do lunch sometime. Yeah, let's try. When you're really like, no, I don't want to do lunch sometime. Or I have a busy schedule. I can't do lunch sometime. Or COVID's out there. I don't want to go out. I don't know, whatever it is. But it's like finding those, just having the awareness and finding those little pieces of where we can upgrade, up level, empower our language and go, I'm saying try because I don't really want to go to lunch. Okay, what would I want to say afterwards? And so it's just a matter of practicing. First, a matter of being aware when we're using these words, and then it's a matter of practicing and replacing. Nick says, yes, Abigail, ensuring that others hear and understand from where they are and where we are. Yes. Yeah. So it's just, again, we're wanting to direct. What are we wanting to get out of the communication? So try, in my eyes, is a disclaimer. And so I really look for commitment. Like, where is the commitment? And if you pick any, like I'm giving you 5 words, but if you pick any one of these and work on just one of those, you'll alter and you'll transform your communication. I promise. It's like so cool and amazing. Okay, here's the next one. But is, let me use an example, but is so important, especially if you're doing any kind of performance reviews or communicating something that's really important. It's like, oh, you did a really great job on that, Susan. But next time, what did Susan actually hear? It doesn't even matter what was after the but. So I stopped there. But next time, well, I'm using another one, we'll go over later. You did a really great job, Susan. But next time, make sure the flowers are out just a little bit sooner. She doesn't even hear. Make sure the flowers are a little bit sooner. I mean, she doesn't, sorry, let me back that up. She doesn't even hear, you did a great job. It's just, oh, well, there's something. And so the way to be more powerful in what you're communicating is to, that's my dog outside. So I'm kind of like, how do I get her to stop? I'm sure you can hear her. How do we take out the but and still have that bridge, right? So there's 2 ways. If I say, you did a really great job, Susan, and next time have the flowers out a little sooner, then I want to actually say, you did a really great job, Susan, and next time, if we could have the flowers out a little sooner, that would be XYZ, right? So that's one way. You can bridge it with and. So remove but and put and in there, and that would bridge the 2 statements together. The other thing, to allow the 2 statements to exist. And this is what I do with my kids, because they go, I'll ask them something. I was trying to remember what's a good example. I'll ask them something and they'll say, yeah, blah, 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 or dinner was good, but, and then they say like whatever they said afterwards. And I'm teaching them about being like empowered with their language. And this is how in my mind, when I hear but, it's like, you did a great job, Susan, but I feel like it just wipes it out, just knock out what I just said, discredits what I said, eliminates what I said. But that's how but lands for people. If you do any kind of communication where you're wanting to give someone feedback and you use a but, they didn't hear any of the positive that you said. Anything that was said before the but just got wiped out. It's really interesting. Find out the next time. Be aware. Find out the next time that you hear but in reference to to something. She hardly ever barks. So we're going to go with it. That's Sasha. Okay. The other way to do, to handle but is you did a really great job. End it, period. And then go into whatever is next to say, transition into something else. And another way you can be aware and like strengthen your communication with these words is to notice, when you're writing, when you're typing or writing something out. It's a great exercise to be able, because you'll be able to catch it more. When we're speaking, we'll hear it afterwards. And it's like, okay, well, let's reflect a little bit later. Because a lot of times it's like, oh, I'd have to stop, or I'd have to, sometimes I'll do where if I'm communicating and I slip with a but, I'll go, and then I'll restate it, whatever it was. And so, especially with my team, they know this. And so we catch ourselves and we do that kind of exercise. But writing is a really great way to practice. One of my very confusing words that is said is surrender. I always have to ask what you mean by surrender. Yeah. So if somebody says a word, and we all have different perceptions of words, right? So like, this is so interesting because I was having a conversation with my friend a few weeks ago, and she said picky in whatever she was saying. And I was like, well, maybe you want to change the word picky. And she's like, why? I'm like, well, okay, hold on. Let me just back up. That word lands like this for me. And maybe she's like, oh, it doesn't land like that for me at all. And I was like, okay, well, go with it. Whereas then we were farther in the conversation. And then I was like talking about like, well, hey, do you journal? And she had the same reaction I had for picky. And she's like, oh, I don't like journaling. It reminds me of this. It brings up this energy previous in my life. Like, I don't want. And I said, okay, well, call it something else. You don't have to call it journaling. Just like, like whatever that is, like just replace that word in your mind. So that's one way. Why I share that is because we all have different energies, different perceptions, different meanings that we place on words. Or like you said, we can always ask for clarity on what is someone meaning by that word. That's really powerful. Loving this, Abigail. Thanks, Nick. Yes, it's words landing everywhere. Yes, words are everywhere, and we get to see them, and we get to start that's where you really train the awareness. Start seeing like the speaking, the writing, like where is it, and then we can start honing in and replacing it. Just like exercising in the gym, like doing those reps. The first day, not doing whatever high weight wise you don't want to bench. And it was funny because I work with a trainer. My husband and I train at different times with the same trainer. And then one day he said something, he said he was just doing like 35s or something. It was like when we started, and I go, you're doing 35s? Like I did 35. He's like, you're curling 35s. And it was that I got the weight mixed up. And so now the trainer always jokes around with me. He's like, you ready to curl those 35s? I'm like, not curling 35s, but it's just, it's, if I wanted to get to 35, then I'd have to do the 5s, for whatever period, the 10s, then the 15s, and work my way up. And so it's like, doesn't just change, like not taking out your knots today. It's like learning, practicing, being aware, seeing where other people are using them. Use the world as your classroom, and for you to practice for yourself. Yes, getting very conscious about our words, conscious and intentional. Absolutely. Okay. So we've gone over not, we've gone over but, we've gone over not, we've gone over try, and we've gone over but. And here's the fancy but. However, so sometimes and it's happened for myself too, where we want to take out but and put in however. And however, I tell people, it's just a fancy but. It's a but with a tuxedo. It just sounds nicer in a way, but it's not really. It's meaning the same thing. Hey, Susan, you did a really great job. However, next time, just wipe it out. Wipe out whatever was said before the however, right? And so, again, this is, general, and like when we're talking, and it's so it's just, it lands so different, even in their personal conversations. Like if you're with your partner or your spouse and you say, hey, thanks for doing the dishes. That was great. However, forgot to take out the trash, but forgot to take out the trash. They don't hear. And think of the energy and think of where that goes for the relationship. So yes, these are little words with a big impact if you change them out. So, but is the same as however. However is a tuxedo, a but with a tuxedo. Okay. The next one you heard me refer to a little bit ago is just. And just is a minimizer. And oftentimes where we hear just is, oh, I just want to say one thing. Well, how does that sound in comparison to I want to say one thing? When we're on Zoom, when we're wherever we're at, you want to say one thing. Why do we have to? Oh, can I get in there just to say one thing? It's a minimizer. And just is a little tougher one for me to like pull out as easy just for me personally. You heard me say, hey, Susan, you did a great job. And then I was using the but. So if I said, hey, Susan, you did a great job. And next time, if we could just get the flowers out, it's like minimizing it. Just, I don't know. It just carries like a word. It's a minimizer. And so the way to have more powerful communication is to remove the just. Even email, hey, just wanted to follow up. Pull out the just. Hey, following up on that status on blah, blah, blah. See that? Can you feel it? Can you see the difference? Can you like feel the difference between that and the two forms of communication? So we want to take out just. It's a minimizer. I'm trying to think of like, what's another example? I hear it a lot on, if I could just say one thing, and it's so natural. Even with my kids, like I started realizing, come on, just put your shoes on. Let's go. That's a little different, like a little bit, but not really. Like I just started being aware of how much just is being used, and it's a minimizer. So you want to be more direct, remove it, and you'll have more powerful communication. So removing just, it's a minimizer. And then the fifth one is sorry. So when we say sorry, oh, sorry, I have a question, or sorry, going in the grocery store. My kids are kind of run in front of somebody in a cart or something. Oh, sorry for my kids. Sorry. Like the sorry is used too much. And what it does is it makes us in the wrong. And when we didn't really do anything wrong, it just starts kind of hampering down. It downplays. And it creates like that energy around ourselves. And then we start saying it and saying it and saying it. And we're disempowering ourselves in all of our communication. It starts to grow. Of course, if you had a part in it, acknowledge it. Say sorry then. But I'm talking about the sorries that we throw out there for whatever. Sometimes we went through this phase where one of my daughters was saying sorry for like everything. Like, hey, pick up your shoes. No, it wasn't that. I'm trying to think of it was sorry when it wasn't supposed to be sorry. And we were like, stop saying sorry. Like, you don't have anything to be sorry for. Just take care of it, whatever it was. That one they just came to mind that we did go through that phase with her. And I'm trying to think of what was an example. And it was so apparent when it was occurring. But I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, is saying sorry when there's no reason to be saying sorry. And so it's disempowering. It's creating that. And what you can do to raise your power around sorry is to turn it into an acknowledgement. So for myself, instead of wanting to be like, sorry, my kids are in the aisle or doing whatever, and I'm like, oh, thank you so much for seeing them. Thank you for, I'm trying to think what it was the last one I said like, thank you for your patience or something like that while they crossed or whatever. Instead of being like, sorry, we're taking a little bit long. It's like replacing sorry when it's appropriate with thank you and acknowledging the other person. It's so much more powerful. People aren't like now frustrated with whatever occurred. They are now like, oh, because they just got acknowledged for something, which they were being patient. Or they did see my kids. Oh, thank you for seeing them and stopping, whatever it was. It puts it into, you're reframing it to put it into a more powerful communication, to have better relationships and connections with people, because you're being intentional with the word choices that we're using. So let's see. Those are my top 5 of what you can do, what you can bring awareness to. I would really say if you pick one of them, just pick one of them, Let the other ones, yeah. Oh, I said try. Oh, okay. But pick one. Pick like I think the one that could make the biggest difference in just everyday life would be not. Start focusing on what you want. I don't want this. I hear that so much. I don't want this. Okay, what do you want? And it's hard. I even find myself, I don't want this. And I turn it around. What do I want? And then once I can get into the space of what I want, now I'm starting to create. Now I'm moving along that path. So if you had to pick one, that would be my recommendation. I'd invite you to pick one of them and start bringing awareness. Of course, you could do all five, but see, just you could do all five. Let's just knock that out when I said but right there. But just pick one, right? And then I minimize it. Just one. See how that plays out. I hope that you could feel the energy in that. Maybe I did that too fast. Yes, I would invite you, take one, take five, take any of them, whatever would make a difference. And this is another example I'll share with you because it's like we create through our language. And so I've been talking about that throughout the session today, is we create through our language. And I went to a seminar and it was the conclusion to a 3-day event. And there was acknowledgements at the end for people that had supported other people to go to this program. And so at the end, there was a woman that stood up and she was acknowledging someone that had supported her to go there. Like she was saying, oh, I just want to talk. See, I said, just want to. It would be more powerful to say, I want to acknowledge, and she started acknowledging him. And then she said, he really pushed for me to come to this course. He really pushed for me to come to this seminar, and he saw what was possible. And had he not, he kept asking me and pushing me to go. And the course leader stopped her and said, what if we replace push? Because again, words matter. And we said, he stood for you. And it was like, oh, and why that was so empowering and impactful was because think of all the other people. There's probably another 100 people there. They're taking this information, right? So words matter. We create through language. So we talked about words we could be replacing. And now, because I'm talking about today's whole session being empowering your language and moving into showing you we create through language. So just in general, being aware of we create through language. And so taking that one where it was push, and that way it was landing for the 100 people without even knowing it was, oh, this is a pushy guy. He's pushy, but we don't even know. We're not even conscious that we're absorbing it that way. So then what would happen? They go to, let's say you're at the vending machine, and this guy that was acknowledged for being pushy, which was a great thing. She was wanting to communicate it in a very positive way. Let's just say that somebody else went up there, or he bumped into someone, or he came up, they didn't know that they were waiting for the vending machine, or they were trying to decide, and he went and put his money in and got something out of the vending machine. It'd be like, God, that guy's a pushy guy. But it's so on the subconscious level that words are creating the entire time. And so I remember when they pulled that out as an example. And again, this is my fascination, my love for language, my love for like being intentional with words. So it was really fascinating to me when they replaced pushed with stood for her to be able to replace those and to create him, to be intentional on creating. How am I creating? How am I creating my husband all the time? Yes, we have to vent sometimes, but am I out there saying, oh, he'd never, or he's with the kids, or he this? Well, who on the other end is going to be getting that? I remember I was with a group of moms, and we were part of a group that would meet and create things for the school. And so at that time, there was one woman there. And I remember I didn't know her husband. I knew a lot of the other families and husbands that were a part of it. I didn't know hers particularly, but I remember that she was really talking about him, that how he was with the kids, that he couldn't get them ready and couldn't pack their lunch, couldn't this, like, it was, I don't know. He was like like useless. I don't remember. Her words were all like, it was her words, right? And so then the next day I'm walking into the school or walking out, and this guy's walking past, and it was like uncomfortable for me because I was like, I had this image that he was created a certain way, and I was just like, hi, like, I don't even, you're like this, right? So the whole point that I want to end on is, yes, I gave you 5 words that you could start using, words that have a big impact. And then also having an awareness. I wanted to touch on the surface today of having an awareness for that we're constantly creating through our language, through the words that we're using, and how is that landing for other people. And so it's something that Edward and I are very intentional about with each other and about our relationship, because how I speak of him is going to be, or how he speaks of me is going to be how he's created out in the world for others. And the same with our kids. If I go out there and I say, oh yeah, this one doesn't do her homework, she doesn't want this, she doesn't, I mean, and that's kind of on negative, but here's like a very innocent one, is one of them, one of our daughters, she didn't like dresses so much when she was little. And we would tell the story, oh, she doesn't like dresses. Yeah, she just doesn't. And what did she do? She took it and she started, like, she was really young, and it was an innocent story. And it was one of those that we just, we would communicate and to share with people. And yet she started hearing that, and it was creating her world for her. And so like she had a preference for not dresses, but now she really I started seeing her live in the story of like, no, I don't like dresses. That's Sissy's, and you can look at it and you can be like, well, maybe she just doesn't really like dresses. I'm like, yes, I know she can, and that would be okay. And I literally saw how that story, because I'd see how she would repeat it or how she would say it. Or it was that she took that story and that was created for her. Even to this day, years later, that's something that she carries. And so it's like being intentional of like, how are we creating that? We're always creating something through how we speak of it. So that is, let's see, I love being a weirdo. We are unique and seldom noticed as a positive person. Yes. See, and like weirdo land's great for you. It could be different if I said something to someone else, hey, you're a weirdo. Actually, they say that in the Sing 2 movie. I don't know if it's a child cartoon movie, but I think they did such a good job. That's like one of my tops right now. Oh, I think they did an amazing job with the storyline, the songs, the words in them, everything. But she goes, oh, how do I know you're not a weirdo? And then he starts like singing to like prove that he is a performer and like can sing. And then she goes, see, I told you were a weirdo. That's the best I can do with my English accent. but just knowing how that lands, right? And so like now that my kids have seen weirdo, like in that, we play around with that, like acting that out or something. But if we didn't, if it was set in a different context, then it could be like different. So anyway, I'm just re-emphasizing the point here. Thank you for participating and being present today. Oh, there was one comment I missed. Deflecting attention. Yes, deflecting attention by saying sorry. So we're pulling ourselves down. Sorry is the word. You want to get that out. Yes. Thank you, Nick. Great show. Thank you for joining. Thank you for watching. If you're watching the replay, please comment. I'd love to come back and so that will be the end of episode 3 for today. So sending so much love and have a great day, night, whenever it is that you're watching. Thanks for joining.